Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, Ayana and I are back at it, and we're going to
Yes.
talk about why recipes, even carnivore recipes and low carb recipes, are keeping you fat and making it infinitely harder to lose weight. Ayana has had her fantastic weight loss transformation. I'm going to pop her picture here. I've had 30-pound weight loss transformation. I've been able to maintain it as well. I'm going to pop my picture as well. And the reason why I always make sure I remind everybody that we have been through this process is because I see that the vast majority of people are still doing the cardinal sin, which is taking advice from people who have never had their own weight loss transformation. When you don't really go through that process, you think you know the answers, but
Yeah.
it is so different. When you actually
It's,
have to go through that process, you realize everything that you theoretically think is going to work does not really
Mhm.
work in real life with people who have our genes, who have our lifestyles, who have struggled with binge eating, food addiction, all that kind of stuff. So I unfortunately had to learn this in a very hard way. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
until I went through like decades of academia, bachelor's, master's degree, the licensure, like doing the whole year, and then a hospital internship, and then a PhD, all of this. And I'm learning from
Yeah.
people who have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, they don't. It's so crazy because it's like unless you've actually gone through it, you can like uh academically give the answer, but it's different when someone's been through it.
So different, so different.
Yeah.
And so this is why I am so passionate about helping people wake up to like rule number one in success in any area of life, not just in fitness, even in business and
Mhm.
relationship. Why are we taking advice from people who don't have what we want to have, who did not have to overcome that? You know,
Yeah,
it makes zero
exactly.
sense, and that's why people keep spinning their wheels and they join these challenges, like they end up blowing up or not losing weight. And it's like,
I
okay,
know.
rant over.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true.
Ayana, thanks
Oh,
so much for coming on the show again. I always have a
yeah.
blast when we get together.
Yes.
So let's start
Yes.
with the topic of today's chat. Why recipes are keeping everybody from weight loss and easy weight loss. You're just making it so much harder for yourself. So you wanna start?
Yeah, no, yes, because I had to realize this myself because when starting a new program of like trying to drop a few pounds or whatever it is, lifestyle change for yourself, it's always good to keep things simple.
Yeah.
And this is something I've always known. But when, you get a little bit overconfident for me, or when you've seen some results and you want to spice things up, you know, recipes are everywhere. And I'm like, ooh, how can I make this keto? How can I make this carnivore? Or we have people in our space, which I highly respect. They have wonderful recipes to use, but I have to be careful with them personally because it's usually always, especially for keto carnivore, a mixture of dairy and other imitation foods all combined together that that dairy salt whatever mix that might be incorporated into it. And I'm thinking basically carnivore, because if we go down the keto realm, it's
Right.
definitely way worse. But anyways, with carnivore, that dairy component with salt whatever sauce is mixed, and it definitely for me makes me want to eat more of it, and it is harder to stop because it's imitating the actual thing. And another thing, it's harder to track. So if you're currently on a weight loss, to track all of those elements into a 4 or 6 ounce serving, which you probably usually want to have more of, it's very difficult, and you most likely will be off a lot.
1000%. Every single client of mine that I've had that is a little bit stubborn, I'm always generally I can break down everybody in the end, but sometimes it takes me a little longer to get to them. And
Mhm.
so, because I don't like to push things, it has to come from them. I just suggest, gently suggest
Yeah.
that they reconsider keeping recipes because every single client that I've had that was, kind of stubborn and keeping that in for as long as possible, they just are slowing down. And I can see it. I can see it in their data. I know how much faster weight loss we could have achieved in that 1 week or 2 week period. Why
Mhm.
didn't we achieve our potential? Why was it just 1 or 2 pounds? I know you could do so much more. And
Yeah,
it's because you go back and you're like, oh, okay, they're doing the chaffles, like
yeah.
it's like pure cheese, right? And then they stuff it. And then it's like all these things. The more ingredients you have in one meal, the higher the caloric value of that meal is going to be. And it's not
Yeah.
going to feel as satisfying because oftentimes it won't have as much protein in it. So,
Oh, yes.
mhm.
100%. Because even a lady we both love, she has a carnivore lasagna. My husband loves it. And in fact, the reason why I will do some recipes I is for him. I
Mm,
can go very plain and it's actually better for me, but for him, I do the recipes and I just kind of have my own stuff. But
right.
that lasagna is pretty much all carnivore and it is delicious. Two thumbs up, you know who you are. But I have to make that just once in a while because, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't do recipes at all. And my hubby, he preps his own meals. I prep my
oh,
own stuff.
that's
Yeah, we're good in that I don't have like I don't feel like oh I have to, but it's a good thing, I guess, on Thanksgiving, on
yes.
holidays, or if you just want something different. You're having a day where it's stressful, whatever. You're like, okay, it's better than binging on carbs. It's better than eating
Yes.
carbs and spiking your insulin or kicking you out of ketosis or, all going down that rabbit hole. Then yeah, totally. But on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis, if you're relying on recipes as a regular part of your lifestyle and your goal is to lose weight, it's just not gonna be easy.
No, it's not. And then, okay, so carnivore recipes, there's still a limit, right? You know, you got your meat, your cheese, dairy, like sauces, which is basically just a recipe for getting fat when you put all of those high caloric things
Once
together. But
again.
now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, oh Lord.
Yeah.
But okay, so where the keto recipes can come into play and a little bit dangerous is because with keto, you can allow more things in a recipe. And with
Right.
that, I'm just thinking of the imitation, like sometimes they'll put almond flour in like sugar-free dessert type things, or anything like that can be coconut flour can be used. And that to me increases the hedonic level like 10 times when you're adding those flowers in. And I mean, to be honest with you, I was around with original Dr. Atkins, and I'm going to argue that that's not even keto, but that's another topic of conversation. But, anyways, the internet keto
Yeah.
that everybody's familiar with now incorporates all of those things, and that just to me makes it even worse.
Yes. When I would do keto back in the day, like when I started doing Instagram and even earlier YouTube videos, I was very much into keto. But yeah, I even published a keto dessert cookbook, which is still it's a Kindle book ebook on Amazon, And that was after I had finished my dissertation on addiction. I still wrote that book. It's
Yeah.
crazy. And I went through that phase and I was like, oh, I'm, trying out the recipes. I can't include them in the cookbook unless I actually try it out. And I remember one time, multiple times, like I could binge on those things. As a matter of fact, because of that cookbook, we discovered this keto cookie recipe that my hubby fell in love with. And that's what I make him for his cheat meal once a week.
Yeah.
And he's like, he will never touch regular carbs, regular cookies. Like, why? These are infinitely better. Like, that's how addictive, how delicious they can be because it's almond flour based, like you said, and the artificial sweeteners. It lights up the brain like crazy.
Oh my God. Sweet taste mixed with fat and a little salt or whatever. Oh my
Yes.
goodness. It's the same exact thing. And so I just had a conversation because I'm currently cleaning up a lot of stuff because I allowed too much in and it just spiraled. See, everybody, like I've been at this a long time, it could still happen. So
Yeah.
I'm like going very plain, right? And so I told my hubby, I was like, listen, these desserts I make you, I'm going to stop for
Mm.
a while. And if you want anything, I'll just buy you because we have sugar-free keto bakeries in town. So I was just like, I'll just get you that
Right.
or whatever. And he's fine with it. He's like, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because it does light up in the brain,
Yes.
and you're like, oh, is the batter good? Okay, good, all right.
Yes.
But then it's just like it just continues, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
Yeah,
yeah,
on the
no,
day that my hubby's when I make him the cookies, and we make him the night before so that they're not around in the house for too long, and then he eats them the next day. But like on that
uh-huh,
day, I make sure I'm like super productive, because then it's like they're there,
yeah,
around you, and you know how delicious they are. And so yeah, I love that. We're so lucky that we live in the United States that you can literally
yeah,
drive to CVS anywhere and you can get all kinds of crazy delicious keto stuff like Lily Sour Patches. Um, I mean,
tons of stuff.
Russell Silver sugar-free stuff. You have everywhere, and you don't even have to drive to an official grocery store. You can just go to like literally a drugstore. Even
Yeah,
7-Elevens carry keto stuff. It's like there is no
yeah.
excuse. You can always, if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna break, I'm thinking of carbs, you can just make sure you maintain ketosis and you just go and you get that. I was finishing up a section on ketones in the supplement guide that I'm writing.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I came across this amazing study that showed a complete resolution of binge eating and
Hmm.
depression and anxiety completely. And it was 3 cases, but it was so well detailed. It was such a great paper that I sent it to a bunch of my clients that I know, like they love that kind of stuff, and they like it would apply to them. They were like, "Wow, I'll send it to you. I think you would
Yeah,
love
that
reading
sounds
it."
really good.
Yes, yes. And it's like those
Ooh.
people, the only thing they had to work with them on is to ensure that they maintained ketosis and the binge eating went away, the ADHD went away. Complete resolution. Those are people that had struggled since childhood, being on antidepressants and anxiety medications, and they've tried all, and they put the whole medical history, every single drug they took, from like Vyvanse and all, the antidepressants, and then the Ritalin, and then the Adderall for the ADHD, and then the binge eating drugs and all that kind of stuff, and everything went away. The anxiety goes away first in like 2 weeks, and then the depression takes a few weeks. But like by the 8-week mark, it was complete remission. And I think a couple of the cases weren't even 100% in ketosis initially because they still, they were getting this was new to them, and they still weren't
Hmm.
hitting a blood ketone level of 0.8 millimolar per liter because that's what the authors decided was the goal, to make sure they're at least at 0.8 millimolar per liter.
0.8.
8. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've always heard, and I know that we talked about this on a couple of shows ago,
Yeah.
um, of where you kind of want to be with ketosis because I hate tracking extra things.
I
Although
love
I do,
tracking extra things.
I know,
I've added so many more things since we
I
last talked
know,
about it.
and you're well, and honest people, honestly, and this is not an excuse because I don't believe in excuses, but I've been sick 3 times in 2 months. And so I think that's
Oh,
another reason why I've been
yeah.
kind of like just
Let me tell
so
you
I feel
something.
like
My hubby just got COVID again. We tested him to positive 2 days in a row, like, and now he's getting better on the third day. But
okay, good.
and we're always all over each other, so I know that definitely I've been very heavily exposed, and nothing. I feel nothing, and
That is so awesome.
yeah, I did the
Oh,
research, of course, and guess what? Ketones increase the function of your T cells, a specific type of white blood cell, and it increases
okay.
it by like an amazing amount. And I know it's because I've been tracking, and I know because I've been tracking diligently my ketones for a while now, and I know I haven't
Yeah.
broken that at all. There, probably that's why, because the first time he got it, I got it, and I got it bad. And I wasn't
Yeah.
vaccinated, dude. I got it bad. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think is when I got the COVID, gosh, I think it was beginning of August. That's when school started. And I was just the first day I was just around tons of people, parents were there, it was just crazy.
Right.
And then I got over that in like 4 or 5 days. But a couple of weeks later, I think I got like a nasty cold, lasted like a week and a few days. And then yesterday, I finally felt normal from the second cold that I
Mm.
got like last week.
Ooh.
So, so going back to my original question, and this will lead back to recipes. All right. So, before in a few videos ago, you mentioned the ideal ketosis level to be in. So, what are you saying now based on that new study?
Right. So if we go back to kind of like the original pioneers in ketogenic research, Dr.
Hmm.
Stephen Finney and Dr. Jeff
Yes.
Volek,
Hmm.
I remember reading their books, The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Living, and that's the official kind of like Bible of ketosis and
Yeah,
ketogenic
and it's
diet.
like a textbook, folks. I have that, and it took me
Yes.
forever to read.
It's yeah, but you know, I highly recommend people read it. And I
Yeah,
think if they watch our podcast, if they've been following YouTube channels around this topic, it'll be easier to grasp that information. When
true.
when I read it, I wasn't like I was very new to the whole thing. It was kind of like my earliest introduction. And I
Yeah, because honestly, I think it was like over 10 years ago that
yes,
I remember getting that book. So
yes, me
I
too.
was familiar, but not 100%. So yeah.
It's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they have
Yeah.
another one just like it. It's called
Oh,
the Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Performance, which is specifically geared towards athletes and a
yes.
ketogenic diet. And in it,
Mhm.
they say that the nutritional ketosis officially starts at 0.3 millimolar per liter. That's like mild nutritional ketosis, but ideally you
Okay.
want it to be at zero point 0.5. So if you're in zero point 0.3, rejoice, you've entered ketosis, but ideally zero point 0.5. Now the case study, those cases by that I'm telling you about, that paper that was published, it was published this year, very new. It
Hmm.
I'm not exactly sure why they decided zero point 0.8 because like is
Hmm.
there a study that showed that that's better? I mean, of course, the deeper the better. You'll get faster results. Maybe they wanted to ensure fast results in their clients
Yeah,
in that
that's what
momentum,
I'm wondering.
right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, because that's interesting.
yeah. So what I have noticed is that fasting really really improves my ketones, like it deepens the ketones. So,
You've been really deep, like
right,
over two.
2.4 yesterday. I really want to get to 3, but I feel like I'm gonna have to do like a 45-hour fast or something, maybe 60-hour fast. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, so everyone, I'm not into fasting yet, but
Yeah, I like
as
that.
you
You
mentioned,
know, I'm gonna break you soon.
I know because okay, you know how earlier in this video that we're watching here, everyone, she says that she allows her clients or whatever to come to their own, right? Okay, so I'm still not on the fasting, but the ketosis tracking, I'm getting closer and closer to like wanting to do that regularly
Yeah,
because I think that it will help me for sure.
I
For
think
sure. And
because of
recipes will not allow that. Okay, for me.
no, 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 absolutely not. I think you could try out like an alternate day fat fast because then you can maintain your sanity a little bit because I know it can be stressful days at job, at your work
Yes.
and with everything.
Yes.
Um,
Fat
and
fast I can get behind if it's like one day. I could probably most
right.
likely do that.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
can try that out. And then if you do alternate day fat fasting on the days when you're not fat fasting, you just do like, low carb, which is what you normally do. That's going to
Yeah.
train your body to enter into deeper state of ketosis. And then maybe naturally you'll feel one day, you know what? I don't even feel like having this little fatty meal. And then you'll have an alternate day fasting. It's a muscle that you have to train as opposed to
Yeah.
going all in. I'm gonna just, from going 3 meals a day to the next day not eating, it's gonna be very stressful.
True, true. And it's like and this is why our topic on recipes is so important because when you're really trying to get to your goal weight or ketosis or both, it's easier to track simple things, and in recipes, not only are they more hedonic, so you want to eat more, and I don't care if they're low fat recipes from mainstream fitness world or because I'll do some of those for him. or keto, low carb, carnivore, it's harder to track.
Yeah.
Chat, like Gemini app, the AIs, help me figure it out like as good as I can, but it's still not 100% accurate.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I just think that's a hindrance. So I think that like for me, it's best if I just meat is the staple.
Yeah.
And then usually veg when I'm behaving, which I am now again. Usually veg is only if like I'm at a restaurant and it's on my plate, but
Yeah.
I don't go out of my way to have veggies,
Yeah.
or fruit sometimes, but it's not really a major thing for me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because here's what happens with the recipes. You're layering things, right? What are
Yeah,
like the main addictive elements in food? Obviously the starches and the sweet taste, whether it's real sugar or artificial sweeteners, that sweet taste that activates the dopamine release. It
true.
is the sodium, the salt, caffeine, um, fat. I had
Yeah.
somebody, try to argue with me on a comment section in one of my YouTube videos because I said that fat is addictive. It's like, yeah, it is. It's like whoever like just eats pure fat, but then again, whoever eats pure starch, unless it's added with fat, with salt, it's the combination, you know?
Yeah, that person is confused. We're talking about recipes. We're talking about combining when
Yes,
you combine these.
it's the
Yeah, like I
combination.
had a temptation to eat off plan last night. So guess what? I got a little pat of butter that
Mm.
I put in my mouth and just literally a couple of macadamia nuts
Ah, there you
and I
go.
was good.
There
I
you
was good.
go.
Though that's fat,
Yes,
but it's you that I ate was just fat. We're talking about fat when it's combined with sweet taste and like
exactly.
you said, salt and caffeine.
It
That's
is,
different.
yes, yes. And it's the same thing with starch, like carbs by themselves. Like there was who's the researcher, the author who wrote those books, Hooked, and another book, Fat, Salt,
Michael Moss,
or yes, yes, I think
that
so.
guy who talked about all the fat, sugar, salt, and then the
Yes.
hooked.
And then
Yeah,
Hooked is
his
the
books are awesome.
amazing, right? I made sure all my students back when I would teach at UM and Miami-Dade College made sure that they would listen to his interviews. We'd listen to them together. And he talks about where they allowed him to go to where they make the Ritz crackers, and they're like, okay, they made him a batch without any salt. Ritz crackers without any salt. You couldn't even swallow that. It's like cardboard. So, but we know it's the carbs that are addictive, but it's not just the carbs. It's the fact that they layered in the salt and of course the fat with the dough, or the flour.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And let me just say, there's a performer here in Vegas, big guy, he's thin now. I don't know. He's well known across, the nation, but he performs. He's a comedian, Penn and Teller, I think. I don't know. Anyways, there's this guy. He lost tons of weight by just eating potatoes, plain potatoes.
Oh, I know who you're
Plain,
talking about. Yes,
right? I think that's him. Anyways,
true.
who wants to overeat a plain baked potato with no salt, no butter? I don't
Yes.
know. I don't.
Yes, exactly. That's how they lose weight, right? Because then it's such a bland diet. It can reset your dopamine receptors for sure, but is it sustainable for life? I mean, I think he's maintained it.
Maintained it, and I'm sure he's added, stuff in, but
Yes,
it probably helped him,
it
you
helps him.
know?
And then when he lost the weight, the fact that you are now lean changes the quality of your life. When your quality of your life and circumstances of your life change, also that raises your baseline dopamine. So that can now that can make him less likely to seek out external source of dopamine in the form of addictive foods again.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
because I don't want to eat plain broccoli or a plain baked potato.
Yes, exactly. So we talked about those. So we talked about, to recap, starches, and then the sweet
Mhm.
taste, and caffeine, and then fat and
Right.
salt, right? And
Yeah.
then I'm gonna add also natural flavors. This is something that people still don't really pay
Mm.
attention to because now everybody's
Mm.
kind of wisened up to the fact that sugar is addictive, and so the food
Yeah.
industry is pivoting and really heavily relying on natural flavors and artificial flavors to boost.
Artificial, yes, but natural?
Well, when they say natural flavor, it's just such a wide umbrella of chemicals that they can use. But it's
Oh,
like, oh, it is, extracted from a plant, so thus it's natural. Yeah, but cocaine is also extracted from a plant. You know what I mean?
yeah. Okay. I'm thinking like the essence of something, like the flavor, like you don't taste it, but you have that essence. Like in some sparkling waters, there's no sweet taste, but it's just like the essence of lemon.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking you're talking about. Are you? Or are you talking about just
That
like
that falls under the umbrella of natural flavor, but there's also so many
interesting?
things that are banned in Europe, for example, because it's been shown to lead to cancers and all kinds of stuff and addictive tendencies. And they're also called natural flavors. It's such a wide umbrella. Anything
Oh,
goes under this term.
wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the final thing is dairy, especially like
Oh,
casein, right? It turns into casomorphins and activates the opioid receptors in your brain and also leads to kind of like overconsumption because you're now eating for the hedonistic value of the food. And so think of any carnivore recipe. It's layering upon layering upon layering, right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
Because even those carnivore desserts that doesn't have sweet taste,
yes.
it has loads of dairy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Now,
like,
if you have hundreds of pounds to lose and this is helping you fix your insulin resistance, by all means do it. The problem is it might work for you, and then once you start getting to your ideal body weight and you want to take it to that next level and those last few pounds, the recipes are going to literally prevent that from happening.
yeah.
Unless you
And
do
dairy
fasting,
is
that can, yeah.
exactly. And for someone of our size, I mean, back when we first started, sure, but where we are now, maintenance or just wanting to drop a little bit, that is a recipe, no pun intended, for disaster because for me, it's best if I'm just like meat only. And when I say that, like ruminant, poultry, fish, shellfish, you know what I mean? That's like the safe zone because
Yes.
dairy, unless I'm at a restaurant, is a no because it's
Yeah.
kind of it's addictive.
1000%. 1000%. Um, if
Except for
somebody,
butter
except for,
for
yeah,
me.
butter, yeah,
For
because it
me.
doesn't have as much casein, right? As compared to, so cheese is pure casein, you know? That's, yeah, so you get milk and you curdle the milk to make cheese. The curdled portion is all casein. So cheese is all casein, and then the liquidy portion that remains is the whey protein. And those are the two main proteins in dairy. And so,
Wow.
yeah, and so you're literally getting a concentrated hit of casein, which turns into caseomorphin, as the name suggests, morphin. It
Yeah.
activates the opioid receptors in your brain, and it just makes you want to eat more.
Wow. That is
Hmm.
so true. That
Right?
is so true. Yeah.
So
No, it is. It is.
our
That's just
recommendation, it's crazy. Our recommendation is if you're struggling to budge the needle on the scale, it's probably your carnivore recipes. Now, if you're so really, really want to keep that in, then train your fasting muscle because that can kind of override a little bit and it can make you feel satisfied because you're not eating all the time. And so you're putting all your calories in one meal, even if it's a recipe, you'll still feel stuffed because you can afford to eat a little bit more calories, you know what I mean,
true.
in that meal.
True, because if I before I test my fasting muscle, um ketosis is definitely I do want to start tracking that. What is the where when is the best time to get the most accurate ketone
So there is
tracking
a
as I call
diurnal variation that happens with ketones, meaning when you wake up in
it?
the morning, you will naturally tend to have a little bit lower ketones, um, as compared to as the day goes on. So in the afternoon, you'll probably start seeing the highest levels of your ketones. Even if you're doing everything the same every single day, it's always going to be a
Oh,
little,
really?
yeah. So don't be alarmed if you want to stay in the 2 millimolar per liter, but like you wake up and you're at 0.5. It's okay. Normally it tends to be a little bit on the lower end.
Hmm.
Possibly because cortisol levels tend to be a little higher in the morning to kind of get you getting ready to start the day. And that
Yeah.
cortisol can lead to a little bit of an glucose increase in your blood, which means a little bit of insulin. It's the insulin that always keeps ketones in check. And so even like tiny amounts of insulin being released is going to prevent the very high levels of ketones. And as the day
Yeah.
goes by, you'll start seeing, ooh, it's getting into really like it. Yeah.
So then would you say like testing at night or in the afternoon would
I
be?
test in the morning because I want to make sure that even in the morning I'm in ketosis, you know, and I
Yeah.
test after a meal, like an hour and 2 hours after a meal, and before I go to sleep.
Oh, okay. Well, morning and before I go to sleep is something I could totally see myself doing. During the day,
Yeah,
it's crazy and
yeah.
there's no way.
Unless you eat something different, because like if you're eating
Yeah.
the same things and it keeps you in ketosis, that's fantastic. But if you like try something different, or you're like, oh, I want some keto treat or whatever, and you have that, just to check that that food did not kick you out of ketosis, because sometimes as the keto treats, they might have maltitol in them. Maltitol is like the worst sweetener. A lot of sorry, don't sue me, but Atkins treats tend to have that, and that'll kick you out
Yeah.
of ketosis. They use that heavily as a sweetener. And so that's going to be very hard for you to achieve like therapeutic ketosis.
Yeah. Oh, of course, I would think so. And then a fat fast is like 90% fat,
Yeah.
10% protein about.
Yes.
And you'd want to, as we were talking before, you'd want to make sure you're also knowing what your calories are because it's easy to,
Right. A lot of
you know,
people say, I'm doing a fat fast. So it's like they're just eating all the fat, but you're not going to lose weight if you're not in a caloric deficit as well. Again, it all goes back to the basics. Yes, ketosis
yes.
is great. Yes, fixing insulin resistance is going to like double the speed of weight loss, but none of that's going to happen if you're not in a caloric deficit.
No,
And I think
no.
people are
No.
learning that the hard way every single day.
I
Slowly
think
but surely,
so.
they'll get there.
Yeah, because I posted something and I tagged you in it where someone's like, "Oh, I mysteriously gained 10 pounds, so I'm doing everything right." Well, her maintenance is 2,000 and her weekly average for the last several weeks was 2,300,
Right,
but that will
right,
slowly put on weight because she'll
right.
eat well, 3,000, fifteen
Yes.
hundred, 2,000. But so it's like all over
Yeah.
the place. The average is
Yeah.
higher than her maintenance when she's
Exactly.
all done.
If people just track, they could figure this out in one day, but it's like this refusal to track. And it's like, do you want it? Do you not want it? Because, when you want something, you will do what it takes. And it's really not that difficult, especially in this day and age,
Yeah.
especially with the free content that everybody's providing.
Oh,
There is no excuse. So it's like, At what point, at what point will you say that this life I'm living is enough? What is it going to take?
yes.
Right? It's going to have to come from you. No, and people
Hmm.
try to wait around until they hit rock bottom. And the truth is, even most people, the truth is, most people, when they hit rock bottom, even that's not enough because the habits are so entrenched. It's just hitting rock bottom is not enough leverage to overcome that. So the only way you can change is by creating your own motivation. Motivation is the result of taking action, not the cause. And that was something that took me a long time to
So
realize.
create your own motivation,
Yes. So take that
which
little tiny
that's
goal.
discipline.
And
Uh-huh.
yeah, so let's just say, okay, fine, I'm just gonna track, just tracking, set that goal and then actually track it. And when you have that first day where you actually did what you said you were gonna do, that's gonna release that dopamine in your brain, which is not very different than accomplishing an even bigger goal in terms of the brain biochemistry. That all you need is that dopamine being released. But people think if it's a small goal, then it's not worth pursuing. It's like, no, the biochemistry in the brain is very similar as accomplishing an even bigger goal. You see?
You know what? That is so important what you just said because yesterday, well, it was like yesterday morning where I'm like, I'm so irritated with being sick and not being like on my game, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, today I'm gonna win today. And I was like, I've just made a small goal and it wasn't a caloric goal because I showed you what it was last night. It was definitely over my what I tried to aim for. But
Yes.
my goal was to stick to mostly carnivore foods, the carbs that were in there were from like just a little bit of dairy. I have my coffee and macadamia nuts,
Yes.
whatever, I don't know. So but to me that was a win because I stuck to carnivore foods and I was like, I didn't want to, I didn't reach for something sweet at the end of the day
Yes.
because I want to cut that out. That's my goal, is to cut out
Yeah.
trying to get something sweet at the end of the day. It's pointless.
Yeah.
So yeah, so yesterday was a win. I did all of that, and those are like small goals, but that
Yeah.
gave me momentum for today. You know what I mean? So yeah,
1000%. Yes. And then
yeah,
today you set another goal and then you hit it, and that's
yeah,
more momentum, right? And the more
yeah,
momentum you generate, that's the force, right? The more momentum you have,
yeah.
that means you're raising your baseline dopamine, which means it's easier now to follow the plan. And when you do deploy discipline, it doesn't drain you as much, you know?
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah.
one thing at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, yeah,
So
that's
I love that. Do want to say with the fat fast, I don't even like, sometimes it's like 70% or 80% fat
oh, okay.
macros for the fat fasting meal that I have, and it still keeps me in deep ketosis. So don't be paralyzed by like it's got to be 90%, because even
Hmm.
80 or 70%, that's still a fat fast, and as
Yeah.
and you're still going the way that I look at a fat fast is like you're not going out of your way to hit those 1.1 grams of protein per pound of ideal body weight. You're not.
Oh, I see. So sometimes when you're fat fasting, you might have more than 10% protein
Yeah,
in a
and
day.
that's fine. As long again, testing, this is where testing really helps because you're like, oh, that's great. I'm at like 2.5 millimolars and I just had a fat fasting meal. Like that's the goal of a fast fast,
Yeah.
deep in a state of ketosis. That's
I
that's
get
all
you.
that matters. Yeah. So and
Yeah.
and then it's motivating because then the more you see those numbers, your ketones going higher, the rate of, as long as you're in a caloric deficit and your ketones
Yes.
are higher, that means that you are in a faster weight loss as opposed to being at a lower level of ketones while being in a caloric deficit.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's very motivating to know, like, wow, I'm really like losing weight at double the pace now or
No,
higher.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something to think about, everybody. I'm thinking about it.
Nice. I'm so glad we had this conversation because a
Yeah.
lot of people, we touched upon it very briefly in the previous episode where we talked about the 10 reasons you will fail at weight loss.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Everybody should go and watch that one. And like all the comments were like, oh, wow, the recipe thing. And I was like, okay, well, I guess this is something that people want to hear more about. So this is why we
Yeah.
decided to talk more about it today. Thank you so much,
Yes,
Ayana, as usual. This was fantastic. Where can
it
people
was.
find you and work with you, connect with you?
Yes, at Pilar Fit Vegas, Instagram and YouTube, and at Pilar Fit LV, on TikTok. And I definitely want to up my YouTube game. So, I definitely, I'm saying this right now for a reason. Within the week, I want to have a video up. So, yeah, there you go.
Nice. Yes. I mean, you have so much to offer. And I mean, I
Yes.
always tell you that, right? Like YouTube can change your life, really.
Yes.
There's just no limit to the impact, to the income, to the lifestyle that you can have. It's just you can keep going as high as you want. That so um
Yeah.
I'm gonna be there rooting for you and I'm gonna check up on you, make sure you post that video this
I
week.
know, I know, I know. That's why I said it. I was like, okay, now I have to do something.
Yes, the whole world is watching, Ayana.
I know.
Awesome. And if anybody wants to work with me, it's drsarahzaldivar.com/coaching for the coaching. And it's drsarahzaldivar.com/shop for all my guides. Which one of my guides would be relevant to what we're talking about? Dopamine body, right? The weight loss guide
Dopamine, yes, dopamine body for
and brain.
sure. And what?
Dopamine brain for the addiction.
Those two are always like the hits. Dopamine
Mhm.
body, dopamine brain, even a carnivore guide
Oh yeah.
could
Yeah,
help
but they
too.
they can get that for free, right? So the 30
Oh
day,
yes,
yes,
yes.
the 30-day carnivore diet, a challenge guide. It's like 150 pages where I guide you through a step-by-step process of how to do a carnivore diet and slowly ease yourself into it so you don't get the keto flu and the sugar addiction symptoms all at once. And what to expect every single like day one, day two, all that stuff. and that you can get for free if you sign up to my newsletter, which the link to the newsletter is in the description box below of this and all my YouTube videos. And in 24 hours after this video goes live, if you sign up to my newsletter, I will send you the guide for free within 24 hours.
Yes.
There you go. Done.
There you go. But
Perfect.
yeah, dopamine body, dopamine brain.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you
sure.
again, Ayana. I'm so glad you're feeling better. And
Yes,
right? And
finally.
and thank you everybody for sticking with us to the end. If you have any comments or topic suggestions, please drop them in the comment section below. As you see, we do read them and we do try our best to address them. And make sure also, if you like this video, give it a like and hit subscribe and hit that little notification bell icon so YouTube alerts you every time I post a new video. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.